Hey all, this is 012 Boku,
Dial J for Jackass.
and we're coming at you with another review of, you guessed it, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. We are back at it with, I believe I wrote down the number, yes, episode 28, better known as Father, and pretty much this is where the first part of all the marbles are laid down after the inter. You gonna be alright, Hawk?
I think he needs to go down.
Alright, let him down.
Get in here.
Whatever it is, this is where the marbles come to play because we leave off after the interlude party back to where we were, and we have it where Gluttony is bringing Alphonse into the lair. You know, Father basically reveals himself and was like, Gluttony, what is this all about? But a bit more calm. I know I'm playing that up, but a bit more calm. He's like really this sort of stoic but curious guy, but stoic as well. Hello there, Hawk. Reveals himself, and they all discover, or well, not everybody yet, because not everybody's there, but Alphonse says, Father, thinking he looks like Hohenheim. And that's what everybody else thinks because what happens next is, in a strange fashion and a very painful thing for Gluttony, they all come out of Gluttony in spades. Envy, Edward, and Ling Yao all come out of him after this painful expulsion from his body that does not look fun at all.
Kind of funny. It's almost like they were chest bursters coming out of Bishop.
In a way, almost, except that's more of the stomach, so you could say stomach bursters, so heh.
Plus, I kind of love, even Hohenheim is shocked to see this, because I'm guessing he never conceived of the possibility that somebody would actually be able to use that fake doorway two ways, but hey, give it up to his fucking kids, man. They knew what they were doing.
Absolutely. While they do have Hohenheim's intelligence after all, they are not dumb kids whatsoever. And basically, there's a moment of, celebration between the two, and, Ling Yao and Edward are also, fist bumping because they made it out, very tender moment between Alphonse and Edward with tight hugs, funny moments of you're squeezing me out, but, all of a sudden, Edward also sees Father, and he's like, Hohenheim, and Father's like, Hohenheim, he's sort of confused, and he also examines the Elrics and saying, basically looking up and down, and it's like, well, no, I'm not who you think of. And by the way, do you mean Van Hohenheim? Yeah, that is our father. We're the Elric. Oh yeah, by any chance are you the Elric brothers? Yes, we are. Why are you named the Elrics? We took our mother's maiden name. Oh, and it's like just this curious thing, and at the same time, he's healing Edward's arm, repairing Alphonse's broken arm as well that Gluttony ate.
And what I love is when he's doing this, of course, they're like, wait a minute, he didn't have to use any motion. It's like, and Alphonse is like, he repaired my armor, and there's no thinning of the metal or anything, and they're like, that's not equivalent exchange at the same time, too.
Yeah, because even when they, even when both Elric brothers who know how to do it clap their hands together and use whatever thing they're using, that's basically them creating the transmutation circle around them to use it against anything for the equivalent exchange, and they still do that even with their powers, but Father is just making it appear out of thin air, which is amazing. They've never seen this, they've never understood it. And
plus, I think I think with them they have to do at least the clap in order to gather some level of kinetic energy together as the base level exchange, but their powers are so advanced it just has to be like a clap. But with him, he doesn't even have to do that. Hell, he doesn't even have to really do any motions or nothing. And it's interesting when you watch it because when you see the Elrics do their clap, there's always blue lightning, but when he does his alchemy,
yes,
there's red lightning.
Mm-hmm.
And I told him, it's like, this kind of reminds me of the difference between the Flash and what's his name, Reverse Flash. Because Flash gets his powers from the positive speed force, which is basically like an entire universe of motion energy that could create damn near fucking anything, damn near life and time travel.
Yep.
The negative Speed Force, on the other hand, is just raw fucking death and motion, stealing people's time, giving it to Zoom, taking away their whole life and everything. And I told him, considering Father is probably using the energy of all the souls he's amassed from sacrificing Ishval, that's probably exactly what it is. He's literally doing motionless and kineticless alchemy by sacrificing one of the souls inside of him.
Well, not only that, you mentioned Ishval, yes, but she was a part of the Ishval War and started that, but also, don't forget the Kingdom of Xerxes.
Yeah, I mean, Father's got a lot of sins.
Yep. And again, to sum it up too, that was a great thing by Jarek, but to sum it up too, the classic forms of good versus evil, blue being a more pure color, mixed in with a little bit of white, mixed in with like a whitish red, and just red, sort of like, evil and good sort of thing.
And also it's kind of interesting since, you can kind of surmise Father's powers are probably more based on death and taking rather than, the Elrics giving and creating. It kind of reminds me of the Red Death, which, if you're familiar with history, scared the fucking crap out of people to the point where there's entire operas about it. Motherfucker shows up in Phantom of the Opera at least once.
Yeah. Well, also, too, that's always the thing. What was worse, the Red Death or the bubonic plague? Still up for debate, that one, but both were pretty flippin' bad. And, as well as this is going on, and, it's sort of like a levity thing with Father and the Elrics, even though the Elrics are challenging him, but Father is completely nonplussed and doesn't really care. Ling Yao basically confronts him, says, what are you? You're evil. How many things do you got inside you? There's too many to count. And then, Father's like, I'd ask you who you are, but I really don't care. And then that's when both, believe it or not, Ling Yao and the Elric brothers try to fight against him to not only protect Ling Yao, but to get answers from this guy. Father basically just floors them with like blocking techniques, and he uses gluttony and envy, Envy recovered by this time too. It wasn't just the Elric brothers. Envy got up and recovered, and
plus they also have plus they have envy, gluttony, and didn't Scar and Xiao Mei also show up?
Yeah, but that's not till later. We're still towards the beginning. They show up towards the middle, near the end as well. But yeah, they do show up too. But as they're being attacked and held down by gluttony and envy respectfully, the Elric brothers are saying, why do you do this? We can have this, but you call us sacrifices and all these things. Do human beings mean nothing to you? And then, he's like, well, yeah, that's rich of you to say that. Human beings mean nothing to me. Is there a little more to a human being when it reacts to a bug or a worm? That's exactly how I think of you. You're nothing more than just a source for me to use to gain power and to do what I need. So basically thinks nothing of people other than the ones he creates, but the ones who are living there, nothing.
There's also a weird thing, if you're really paying attention to the dialogue in this episode, that you'll catch on when Father asks him, it's like, Hohenheim? Do you mean von Hohenheim? Are you the Elric brothers? Do you know where he is by any chance? If you pay attention to the dialogue, you'll kind of catch on to the fact that even though he was inside of von Hohenheim and, basically probably shared his intelligence and memories while he was basically living inside of him, he doesn't seem to know where he is now. And the fact that, von Hohenheim had 2 kids who were both gifted in alchemy was something that he kind of overlooked for a very long time. You realize there's a potential chance that von Hohenheim, whether knowingly, not, or whatever, had enough willpower and intelligence to probably not completely trust Father, and possibly was even smart enough and clever enough to block some of the more important memories out. Or, Father was just so goddamn arrogant he really didn't care because it didn't fit into his plans.
Yep, and that's actually a good point there. And during this, while they're fighting and still struggling with all 3 of them, Father is just, he's having none of it, and he's like, enough of this, to where he taps his foot on the ground. It basically reverberates this force shockwave that right before they get there, Scar and Xiao Mei feel, and then or no, not Xiao Mei, Mei Chang feels, Scar and Mei Chang, and then other people can feel it throughout, because they basically show some of the other characters who feel it. But then all of a sudden in the mountains, like way away from the town, you see Hohenheim feeling this, and he just looks off into the direction where he felt it. So whatever this was probably reverberated off of all the country and the provinces. And what happens is you have Edward and Alphonse trying to use their alchemy, but they can't. They're struggling really hard. And then all of a sudden, you have, it was basically, Ling Yao, who said that he was there to gain a bit of power, and, struggling against them wasn't his thing, but he wants to know everything about it. Father takes this as an interesting thing and saying, I can use you as one of my pawns, and he makes this...
Yeah, I think if I remember, Ling Yao let it slip that he was looking for the Philosopher's Stone to secure the kingdom, and of course that caught Father's attention. So what does he do? It's like, yeah, well, I had such success with Wrath. Why don't I make another one?
Yeah, greed in a way.
Yeah, he basically...
I see what you're saying now. Okay,
yeah,
I gotcha.
Basically, he collects the alchemist stone of greed through his forehead opens up and there's the third eye, and it bleeds and it turns into like the little blood jewel for the for greed stone, and he's gonna like put it inside the scar on Ling Yao's cheek he got during the fight, and Ed's was it? Yeah, it was Edward. Edward's like, no, don't do it, leave him alone. He's like, no, don't interfere. This is exactly what I came for. Why would I want to stop him? He's basically telling me he's going to give me everything I came here for.
And then Father's like, well, we'll see if you can survive. And he drops the blood drop of the Philosopher's Stone right into his cut. It absorbs into him. And much like with Fear of Bradley, he's struggling and, trying to see if he can contain it. All of a sudden you see where Ling Yao is falling inside of his mind, and there's all these like dead souls hitting him, and people are just in pain, and all of a sudden he stops, to where we see a visage of greed open up, and basically, is saying, like, asking him, are you the one I'm going to control? Yes, but I'm going to let you control me. Oh, is that so? Yes, because I want to know everything about you. I want to know everything to this power. Otherwise, I can't go back and face my people. I can't face my father. I can't face my ward who got injured protecting me. Like, he's passionately believing in everything he's doing, and then Greed just looks at him like, I've never met anyone like you. Well, we'll see if you can survive this, but don't say I didn't warn you.
If I remember, he said, like, and last of all, how would I be able to face my vassal who lost her arm trying to help me? I want power. I want power enough to understand things and to accumulate all that I desire. And that, of course, is when like the true spirit of greed just looks at him. It's like, and you even see it. He just pauses. He's not even talking. He's just looking at the guy, and it's like, you know what? I like this guy. Let's make this partnership happen, and it works too. And honestly, it almost feels like Greed had like Ling Yao had an easier time bonding with Greed than Bradley did with Wrath.
Yeah, and then the funny thing is with that, well, because again, Bradley probably struggled against it, where, like, if you remember what Bradley says, not to go back to a previous episode here, folks, but if you remember what Bradley said, telling his backstory to Mustang, I don't know what soul won, Wrath's or my own, but I was born that day. So again, it was a struggle between the two, but still, a part of Bradley survived. We just don't know who's the one that's fully in charge. Is it his human soul or is it Wrath? I'm inclined to believe with Bradley, it was probably a bit of both, because Bradley would probably not have these whimsical feelings if he was just Wrath. He'd probably be way more of a vicious fucking bastard.
And when we saw this episode, this part of the episode, I told Boku here, I told him, I think this is the reason why Wrath was able to bond with Bradley and why Ling Yao was bonded so easily with Greed is because they basically embody the very sin of the Philosopher's Stone they were given.
Yep.
Wrath is a military man. He was raised by a brutal authoritarian dictatorship that, rules through fear and manipulation. Of course he's going to have wrath. I mean, look at the training regimen he went through. And then with Ling Yao, he is the greediest asshole, but he's got the same principles as Greed. And, I just have to think, it's like you could have made an entire army of these guys. You just need to find people who embody these sins.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And, that's the thing. And I forgot, there's one thing that Greed says both in Japanese and in English that he says. He actually tells Ling Yao right before he takes over him and says, "Don't say I didn't warn you." He's like, "I like your avarice, kid." And he doesn't say greed, but avarice is a part of greed. So that's what he says. He's like, "I like your avarice." And again, you may look at that as what it is. You may look at that as not. But even the first time I saw this, I'm like, Ling Yao is obsessed with this. He wants it at any cost. And that by definition is greed. So what Jarek said pretty much fits the bill and makes sense, which what makes it interesting. But to go to the next part of it, what happens is Greed comes out. Greed seems like he's fully in control. Ling Yao's eyes are completely open now and have a little bit of red tint from the Philosopher's Stone. And what happens is he announces himself to the Elric brothers that his name is Greed. And they're like, wait a minute, from or no, not from Rush Valley, but
Doubleth?
Oh, Doubleth, yeah. From Doubleth, and he's like, no, sorry, doesn't ring a bell. So basically, the old Greed was destroyed, and every time Father recreates someone, he can give him a new personality. But if you guys know, if you've seen the show like I have, I don't know if Jarek remembers, but someone gets the idea. Does any trace of the old Greed still remain?
Now, what's interesting, too, is, when you look at Ling Yao when he's, inside this well of souls that have been consumed by greed, he's the only one that still has, his human form. All the other ones are just basically these faces of who these warped faces of who they used to be screaming in pain, but he's actually inside what is basically a well of damned souls damned by their own greed, and he's the only one still holding himself together as who he is.
Well, probably because of his spiritual training and what the people of Jing really have.
Well,
too bad that's not the case now.
That's probably something we're going to learn about Ling Yao and greed later on, but we'll save that for when we get there.
Yeah.
But also, it's just kind of interesting. Another thing I noticed about Ling Yao post-greed assimilation was how there were elements of the old Greed's face in Ling Yao once they bonded. Aside from the open eyes, a little bit of the cheek, the jawbone. You could see a little bit of the old Greed, but it was just the facial features and a few other things.
Stuff that would come out from his grin to his interactions and whatnot. Yeah, absolutely. And then during that, right when Edward and Alphonse are trying to, basically reason with Ling Yao to get him to come out of greed, Mei Chang and Scar show up, and what happens is two things happen. Edward and Alphonse are still being pinned down by envy, and Scar's saying, "So the Full Metal Alchemist is here," and Mei Chang's like, "Where is he? Where is he?" and then all of a sudden, he sees him, and she just has all her dreams of the good-looking, tall, sexy boy Dash, and she's just this white thing. And I gotta say, both the voice actors, not to give it away really quick, but Monica Rial and Maya Goto. Both of them are just I
have to admit, though, the insult she gives him in Japanese was way better, because I think she called him what was it, a rice seed of a man. And
a rice seed of a man.
Whereas in English they just went for the pipsqueak line, but I mean really, her calling him a grade of rice.
It was short dork. You're a short dork.
Her saying that he's basically a grade of rice of a man is just perfect for a Chinese girl like her.
Yeah, who you calling small, you little girl?
Oh god! I mean, the two of them. It's, if it wasn't for Winry, I could totally see this ship sailing.
And then, for whatever reason, this is what causes them to get free because Mei Chang says she won't forgive anybody for the insult that her dreams were dashed. So she starts using her alchemy to attack Father, Gluttony, Envy, and they're all being backed away by her, technically. Scar's there to back her up once things start getting bad. Both the Elrics are to their feet. Edward and Alphonse, well, Edward, I believe, sensed an opportunity because Alphonse said, he's like, hey, Scar, you want to know who started the war? These ones, and especially that man there, was the one who killed the child in Ishval. They're the ones who basically used you and orchestrated the whole war to kill people to get their power they needed. And he's like, really? He's like, I want to know the answers. No, save it. I'll beat them out of you. And you're not even fit to join my brothers in heaven. I'll send you down to the pits of hell to where you won't even come back up.
Yeah, and he basically, tries to do, a face choke push on Father where he's, using the arm of deconstruction on him. And Father's like, interesting. Destruction? No. Deconstruction. Interesting. And he's, analyzing the power and, right after Scar gets off, you can see this look on his face. It's like, how did he figure that out so quickly? It's like, he probably tossed every last bit of deconstruction alchemy he had at him, and Father just takes that shit.
Yeah, right to the face and doesn't do anything. And also before that, too, you have Mei Chang, getting chased by Gluttony. Envy got taken down a little bit by Scar while he was dealing with Father. Father, who basically fires back against Scar, injures Scar, and injures Scar's right arm. So Scar's a little out of commission, not completely, but just a little bit. And as well, you have Father asking for Greed's help to help, get rid of all these people.
Oh, yeah.
And, he's basically just running with his hands in his pockets looking weird. You have Edward still trying to reason with him.
And if
and
I
he's
remember,
like, no, there's just greed.
When he tells him, Greed, go take care of these pests, he's like, yes, boss daddy, which is kind of interesting because it kind of shows that there is still Ling Yao in there because Ling would of course call him boss, whereas Greed would call him daddy. So
yeah,
you can, and Edward of course picks up on that rather quickly. He's trying his best to fight him without his alchemy, and he does actually manage to knock him to the ground, and he throws this delayed punch just to see if he'll try and stop him. And I believe he said something like, what about Longfan? And that's when the hit actually connects, and you can see Greed just give him this look like, really? You had to say that?
Well, remember, I'm thinking that wasn't Greed in that moment. That was Ling Yao saying, Edward, stop messing this up. Shut up.
And he even kind of mentions that right before Scar, right before he tells Scar and to take Mei Chang and run. He's like, what about him? It's like, no, he's still in there somewhere or something like that.
Oh, well, actually, I'll sort of get that since you sort of got to that end point already. What happens is, right when Edward is still fighting Greed, Ling Yao combo, basically, Mei Chang got injured by Gluttony, Alphonse makes the save and then runs out of the room, and then, Scar has to run away too. They're cornered by a bunch of Chimera under their control. Alphonse says, I hate asking for your help because I can't forgive you for what you did to Nina plus all these other people. But do you have any way of getting out of here? And he's like, well, no, do you have a plan? Well, there's one thing. If you could take her and go, they won't hurt me. They won't hurt me or Edward because they need us for a sacrifice. So take her and get out of here. And Scar's like, well, no. I wouldn't be able to get her far in this position, so you take care of her, but I'm not out of this fight yet. And he uses probably what remains of his power to basically hydrogenize the water, explode on Envy, Gluttony, and all the Chimeras. Some of the Chimera are killed, others are coming out of the water, others are just knocked back. Oh, and he also used I forgot Alphonse's hat is like the ignition when he ionized the water to make it burst.
I think basically what he did was, since his arm only uses like the deconstruction alchemy, he probably just removed all of the oxygen molecules from the water, leaving only the hydrogen, and then used Alphonse's head to smash open the pipe to create a spark, creating a hydroelectric explosion.
Which is basically what ended up happening. And, Alphonse gets his head back on, but then Envy grabs him and says, where is he? And he's not telling Envy anything. And Envy's like, well, okay, Gluttony, sniff him out and see him. Then Gluttony's basically he was on his last life. He was starting to die. And, Envy's like, oh, you used your last life, you stupid idiot. And it's like, and then they take him back to where they're all there with Father, and Father just wants them all taken up above. And that's where the fight ends, to the part to where, he's fighting Green. He's like, what about all that you told me? What about you saying you wanted to care for your people? And what about Lon Fawn? And then that's when, the facial feature comes up and it's like, shut up, Edward, let me do this. I know what I'm doing. And, that's when he's like, is Lino still in there? Yeah, he's in there. And then that's where it ended. There's also a little Easter egg at the end, too, where basically Father says, he breaks down, poor Gluttony, as he calls him. And then he says, worry not, Gluttony, I will make you better than before, but I will keep your memories intact. And that's where it ends.
Also, you might be asking, since we mentioned this, it's like, how did Father manage to shut down the Elric brothers' alchemy, and yet Mei Chang and Scar were still able to use their abilities? Well, the answer is actually probably really simple.
Oh, yeah, we didn't talk about that, yeah.
Because, the Edward brothers were using traditional alchemy the way they do it, whereas Mei Chang and Scar are using alkahestry, a.k.a. the Xerxes type of alchemy, the older version.
Yeah.
And knowing Father, he probably didn't build any traps for alkahestry because he probably didn't think anybody was still practicing it.
Well, yeah.
Also, I kind of forgot to mention this as well. Like, the room they're in has, like, a huge amount of pipes. I mean, maybe for blood, but I noticed, like, with the way it was arranged, it looks like a giant church pipe organ. And I was thinking, like, with the way he stamped his foot down, to, like, send out that reverberating wave to cancel out the alchemy, I was thinking, what if that's the way he's doing it, using, like, the combination of his alchemy reverberating through the pipes to just basically, like, rewire their neural synapses so that the part of their brain they would normally use to activate the alchemy just kind of gets clicked off temporarily.
Like an amplifier. That's a good point there, Jarek. I never thought about that.
Because, I mean, we kind of saw that with, like, Railgun, with the that anti-skill thing they had in the show.
Oh, yeah, the skill out, yeah.
Yeah, like how they use the skill up to, the sound waves of the skill up to artificially amplify the abilities, and then they use the anti-skill one to basically nullify them.
Yep.
So it's kind of the same thing, you have like this massive array of pipes, which again looks like a church pipe organ, which I have to believe was purposeful, which are, a musical instrument that's very good for sound reverberation.
Yep. And that's actually not a bad thing. But that was basically the episode in a nutshell. Lots of action, one room, a few characters, but just a whole lot of craziness. And for me, it was really hard to pick the characters in this one because everybody was important. Nobody felt left out. Everybody's acting was, phenomenal and great. I mean, if you could say there's one character that was sort of there for the fun, even though she was great for reaction, Mei Chang, Monica Rial, Mai Goto, great actresses in both their rights, but they basically were sort of the odd person out that didn't have anything else at the stake at that time, other than like, I knew him. That's Prince Ling Yao of the Ling the Ling family, and then basically knowing him, that old man I don't like. He has many souls inside of him, but basically, that was just her for the comedic effect. Not saying that she wasn't important, but she's sort of the character that was just sort of there because Scar had a stake, Gluttony and Envy had a stake, Father, the Elric brothers, Ling Yao. A bit more important, not to put, Mei Chang down, but she, was sort of just there. But, great as well, because like I said, all the actors in this episode were absolutely great. For me, it was hard to nail down, because as you guys know, Maxie Whitehead, Maxie Whitehead, Rie Kukamiya, Great Althans, Edward Elric, Vic Mignogna, Romy Paku, Great Edward Elric, and great performances in this episode. But I really had to nail it down to, in my opinion, I have to give it to, Father Kent Williams, Iyamasu Kayumi, and believe it or not, I will give it to Ling Yao in this one, Todd Habercorn, Mamoru Mayano, because their two performances in this one were really good. Just Ling Yao wanting this so badly, Father's whole nonchalant attitude with everything, but yet knowing that he brings out that sinister implication with what he's doing, even though he's very nonchalant, you can just see he radiates evil through the performances. And believe it or not, if there's a third one I could add, I'd have to give it to Greed, Troy Baker, Yuichi Nakamura, because the new Greed is coming out and being this whimsical, I'm going to have fun type of guy, was just great. But knowing that there's the evil of greed that's back to stir up trouble is very interesting. And great performances. And I will say, to give one more point of it, Iyamasu Kiyumi, you did a great performance in Japanese. Absolutely loved it. But they're bugging you or something? I saw you looking up.
Nah.
Oh. And then there's, but I have to give the edge to Kent Williams as Father, because just that performance was so great. But those are mine. Jarek, you're up.
Well, number one, of course, is going to be Father, because, man, he, again, kind of like with Wrath, he can go from being slightly goofy or kind of awkward to just being absolute stone cold bastard at a drop of a hat. It's, God, now we know where Wrath gets it from. But honestly, for my number two, and I can't believe I'm saying this.
What's up?
I have to pick Monica Rial.
Really? Explain to me, Jarek. This is huge.
I hate to say this, but nobody does crazy angry bitch like Monica Rial.
Okay, fair point.
And I hate to say this. This isn't even her going full Monica Rial. No, you want to see that shit, you have to watch Panty Pony Dash.
Yeah.
That was her best Monica Rial freak out of all time.
There's also a few other ones out there, several I own, and we'll get to it, guys.
Chrono Crusade would be another one.
Chrono Crusade, Index.
Yeah.
Index. Can't forget Index. And believe me, guys, we will get to that too.
But honestly, when she gets pissed off realizing Edward Elric is not the tall, handsome guy she imagined, one of my favorite Rial moments, she was not acting right there.
Yeah, that was her being her, like we were talking about before. Absolutely. Well, no, that is very interesting.
But I do admit, if it wasn't for her absolute freak out in this one, it definitely would be Greed. And he lives up to his name now more than ever because he gets 3 of the best voice actors all to himself.
Yep, and if you guys remember before Troy Baker took over in English, because if I remember, I think in Japanese it's the same. I think Yuichi Nakamura was the same guy before. They're just saying, it's a different Greed. But in this one, they went with a different voice, I believe, in English. Where in English, you had Chris Patton starting off. And Chris Patton gives a great performance as Greed in this one for his short time to be in it. But also Troy Baker, who's going to complain about Troy Baker? Because Troy Baker is gold himself as well. So,
seriously,
just good stuff.
Chris Patton, fucking Troy Baker, Todd Habercorn. Like, seriously, all he needs now is Yuri Lowenthal and Christopher Freeman. He's got, all the greatest voice actors in one role.
Yeah, but that's too much greatness, because if you had Scott McNeil and a couple others on top of that,
oh, man.
But yeah, I will give one more shout-out, not that I want to stick to a ton of characters here. I want to give one more shout-out, because I think his voice acting credit was worthy enough, too. Scar, J. Michael Tatum, and Kente Miyake. Both your guys' wig outs were flipping awesome. I will give the edge a little bit more to Kente Miyake because he seemed to bring a bit more emotion out of it. But J. Michael Tatum, you were aces too, dude. Those were just great. Just I'm gonna have vengeance on all of you!
Hey, Boku.
What?
All this was missing was...
Yeah, well, yeah. Hey, all you need to do is put him in a corner and then all of a sudden, I'm sorry, I will step in and handle this. I'm merely just a humble butler, or am I a deer again? Oh no, I'm actually a big beefy man with destruction on my own. Here I go.
If you know, you know.
Yep, absolutely. And final thoughts is great episode for action. Great episode for moving the needle forward. Seeing Father at his full worst. Holy crap, you just want to see more of it, and you're just wondering where the hell's it's all going to unravel down the line, because, yeah, Father ain't no spring chicken. This is a guy who's calculating, knows what he's doing, and he ain't going to want this shit.
And like I told Boku, it's kind of interesting when you watch, because you'll notice the real Hohenheim, his hair is still blonde, his eyes are still blue. Father, on the other hand, seems to be going silver with yellowish eyes. So
yep.
There's some interesting little callbacks, but differences between the two. And also, Father's face is just so punchable. But don't worry, Edward's going to get around to that eventually.
No, yes. And that's basically the episode 28, Father in a nutshell. Again, what do you guys think? Just leave us a comment down below and let us know, and just get the discussion going. And until then, this is All One Two Boku and
Mr. Jackass.
And we will see you guys again with another review as soon as we can. Alright, guys? Deuces.
Deuces.